It's so amazing to see. But this all comes from PT, and so we're just really excited that PT and Blake are here to pour into us here at G5. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring up my brother, because he's my brother, and I'm going to bring up my brother, Mr. Blake Goad.
What's up, guys? How are y'all doing today? Okay, we got to do that. I thought we just went over this, guys. Come on. How are y'all doing today? Okay, that's the best awesome I've heard since Josh asked. So, a lot of you will catch that later. Do y'all like to have fun? I love to have fun. And one of the biggest things I've learned in leadership is you have to have fun with leadership, right? Because how many know if you don't have fun, it's not worth doing? Right? I agree with myself, too. I thought it was pretty good, huh? But I'm excited. I can't believe it's the first leadership of the new year. Like, this is awesome. We are so grateful. We have all our G5 leadership tuning in all around the world, like Josh said. Gotta love when the words get confusing. But I'm so stoked to start this year off right with leadership, right? And how many of you know who you are, like Josh said, determines what you do throughout the year, right? And who you become also determines what your future looks like. And I'm excited I wanted to just go over a couple little points that I think going into the new year is massive to work on. How many of you agree it's always important to work on you, right? Well, if you're all cool, I'm going to be not too long today because I want to bring my amazing father up. Can we do that? Is that okay? He's here. Don't worry. He's making a celebrity entrance. He's coming in and speaking. It's fun. But I'm going to jump right in. Is that okay with y'all? We're going to jump right in. Okay, cool. Well, point number one, I basically just want to talk about things that I feel like, how many of you know we all have something we all have to work on? We all have something we have to work on. We're all not the masters of something. And I love the quote, and it simply said that it is if you do something, I think it was like if you do something for 20, I can't remember the exact amount of hours, but there was a certain amount of hours if you do something that you become the master of whatever it is you did for that amount of time. It's like 29 hours. It's a weird number. 10,000 hours. See, I'm glad I had my dad. That's awesome. But 10,000 hours, if you do something for 10,000 hours, you become the master of that. And my first point ties into doing something consistently. And the first thing is creating new healthy habits. Creating new healthy habits. Now, how many of you know doing something for 10,000 hours has to be a habit? An intentional habit. And how many of you guys online, how many of you know when you do something, after a while it gets very old? You know what I'm saying? How many know you do something, like you do the same thing every day, and after a while you just don't even have to think about it, you do it so much. Like you don't even realize you do it. That it becomes such a habit that people are like, do you even realize you do that anymore? Do you know what I'm talking about? And I remember when I first started driving, I always took the same way to come here every week. I drove the same way, the same speed. I did everything exact coming here. And I remember one day my dad said, Blake, you unconsciously go the same way every single time to the ranch. And I said, I do? And he goes, yes, it's become a habit. He says, I want to encourage you to change it up once a week when you go to the ranch. Drive a different way that you don't normally go to the ranch. I said, huh. I said, now why is that? Why? He goes, because when you do the uncommon, sometimes that helps, not sometimes, but all the time that helps you think outside the box. So when you get stuck in a rut, when you get stuck in your habits, your old habits, I'm not saying your old habits are bad, but how many of you know sometimes creating new healthy habits will change your future and your projection of where you're going, right? And one of the biggest things is that it creates consistency. Now you're thinking, Blake, well, if I did my old habits, that's consistency. But one of the greatest things that I want to encourage y'all is when you do your old habits, it's getting stuck in a rut. And you're saying, Blake, what do you mean getting stuck in a rut? Well, how many of you know when you do the same thing every day at the same time for a certain amount of years or days or whatever, you get in a rut. You almost have to don't think about it. And one of the biggest things that I want to encourage y'all not to do is not to get sedentary in your thinking. Don't get sedentary in your thinking. Don't get sedentary in your habits, because how many of you know me driving to the ranch the same way, the same time, the same everything, every single day became almost just a habit of me just like not even having to unconsciously think about it. And how many of you know when you don't have to think about something, or like when you have to when you can't think outside of the box of what you're doing, how many of you know that's not good? Because one of the biggest things my dad taught me is you had to think outside the box at all the time. Think outside the box. Even if it hurts you, think outside the box. Because how many of you know if it hurts you, that means you're learning? And you're thinking, Blake, I don't like to get hurt. Trust me, I went to the chiropractor today. I don't like to get hurt. And I love when I told my chiropractor, I started laughing when I was on the table today. And he goes, Blake, what are you laughing at? I said, Dr. Kerr, I said, I always thought it was funny is when you start stretching me and it starts to hurt, my body automatically tries to make it to where I don't hurt. He goes, what do you mean? I said, like you were twisting my leg earlier and my body tried to shift to relieve the pain so I didn't feel the pain. That's me sticking in a bad habit of me trying to make, because how many of you know the only way you grow is going through pain? Going through things that'll stretch you and grow you. And he literally looked at me and he goes, that's the biggest thing that I've had to help people understand about coming to a chiropractor. I said, what's that, Dr. Kerr? He says, the healthy pain will help give you healthy habits for the future. Healthy pain will give you healthy habits in the future. Consistency. And another thing, and point number 2 is it's very simple, but the little things matter. The little things matter. And one of the biggest things that I remember when I was little is when my parents were, I'm so thankful that my parents taught us how to think at a young age. I'm so grateful. And instead of our parents telling us, you're going to do this, they would give us and go, hey, look, here's the situation, and here's the two outcomes. And can you live with either one of those outcomes? Now you're saying, that's little. Why are you talking to a 5-year-old like that? That's out here. But how many of you know if they didn't teach me how to think out here, when I was having to deal with the little things on a daily basis, I couldn't make those big decisions. And I'm so grateful that my parents taught me how to think the big, because when I came small, my mind was already outgrown the little, but that makes it easier for me to make the little decisions. I don't take as long on making those decisions. I have friends that take 4 hours to figure out what they're going to eat for dinner. I'm like, I'm sorry. I love food, but it don't take me 4 hours to figure out what's going to go in my belly. And if you have that issue, come talk to us. We can help you out. I can give you a great food list. But what I'm saying is how many of you know when you can't figure out the little things in life, the big things are going to be so much more hard for you to figure out. The little things. How many of you remember when, this is going to sound so funny, but how many of you remember when you were little and you had to learn to remember how to put deodorant and brush your teeth and the little things? Do you all remember when you were little and you had to learn how to do all that? If you don't, we got a major problem. Because if you don't put deodorant on still, we'll have to talk, we got to talk to y'all. But how many of you know learning those little habits, and hopefully you still have those habits today. But how many of you know learning to get up and have a routine in your life, having those habits of going, okay, step 1, learning the little things. And how do we know? I want to encourage you, okay? Don't waste your waiting. Don't waste your waiting. You're saying, Blake, what does it have to do with the little things? Well, I want to encourage you. You all probably think right now, I'm just doing the little step by step right now, trying to get through life. Trying to figure out what my next big move is, what my next big decision is, what my next big life thing is going to be, my next goal. Well, I want to encourage you all, don't waste your waiting. You're saying, Blake, what is wasting my waiting? What am I waiting on? Well, a lot of people just get stuck. It goes back to my habits. They get stuck in a rut. I want to encourage y'all to never waste your waiting. Learn. One of the biggest things I remember is my parents always encouraged me to learn to read, listen to audios, and make sure that I had the right people encouraging me and speaking into my life. The little things. And One of the one of the biggest things I remember, and I heard this quote a few months back, and it was so massive, and it hit me. Have you ever heard one of those quotes when it hits you, it takes you, like, you know it's a big quote, but it takes you a minute to realize how big the quote is? You know what I'm talking about? Well, I heard this quote, I was driving down the road, and I was listening to a podcast, and this quote came across the podcast, and it simply said, closed-minded leaders will close other leaders' minds. Closed-minded leaders will close other leaders' minds. And how many of you know sometimes smart men lack wisdom? There's a difference between being smart and having wisdom. And I am so thankful to God that my father has wisdom, but he's also smart. And you're saying people can have both? Yes. I'll introduce you to a guy here in a second that has both. But how many of you know wisdom is different than being smart? You can make a smart decision, but knowing if it's the right decision and how to act on that decision is a whole different story and a whole different step. And I want to encourage y'all, when you're in your waiting, please don't waste your waiting. What you're listening to. It's like, how many of you know you go to the doctor's like, I need y'all to, I love food. G5 loves to eat. I don't know if y'all ever heard that around here, but we love food. But I remember a couple weeks ago, my doctor said, you need to watch what you're eating. I said, excuse me? He said, yes, you need to watch what you're eating. I said, Doc, I watch it go in. Does that count? And he goes, no, that's totally different than what I'm trying to say. I said, Doc, why do I need to watch what I'm eating? And he goes, because when you watch what you eat, it becomes another healthy habit. Another healthy habit. And how many of you know sometimes you need people in your life to come up alongside you and go, hey, bro, you may be thinking you're doing the right thing, but it's not helping you in long term. How many of you know I may be eating all the wrong food, but it's enjoyable? You hear my dad talk about it all the time. He's eating chicken and running 5 miles a day. How many of you know that's not enjoyable? But how many of you know 20 years from now that's going to have an effect on it? Right? Choosing the right steps. Number 3 is simply expanding your capacity. Expanding your capacity. And how many of you know creating healthy habits and being consistent in the little things will expand your capacity? I have so many people, now don't get me wrong, I love everybody. But we have so many people that call us and go, hey, we're not going to make it to church tonight. I stubbed my little toe and I can't walk and I'm not going to make it to church. And you don't want to know what I want to say to them. I'm like, I'm sorry. I twisted my ankle and did all this crazy stuff and I'm here drumming tonight. Now you're saying, Blake, that's mean. But how many of you know sometimes people need a friend that'll come alongside of them and go, hey, bro, your little toe's important, but how many of you know your soul's even more important? And you're saying, Blake, I love having friends that stretch me. Because sometimes, I'm talking about expanding your capacity. Dealing with people that have complaints every single day expands my capacity. And you're saying, Blake, how does that work? Because it expands my patience. Expands my patience. I'm one of the few people that do not pray for patience. Because I4 will give it to you, trust me. But how many of you know having those friends that are consistent in your life and help you work on the little things will slowly expand your capacity? And one of the things I want to encourage you all is how to expand your capacity is to try to add one more good thing that you do every day. And you say, Blake, what does that mean? Well, you could be calling somebody you don't like calling. Or texting a person that you haven't talked to in a long time. We have a friend, and my dad does this, I do this, we have friends, and they literally have a list, and they text 5 people in the morning, call 5 people in the afternoon, and text and call 5 people in the evening. And you're saying, Blake, what does that have to do with expanding your capacity? How many of you know you're dealing with people will stretch you to the 9th degree? Stretch you to the 9th degree. And how many of you, in leadership, how many of you know you truly haven't led if you've never been truly heard? You've truly never led until you've truly never been heard. And I'm not trying to complain, but if you knew how many people we've helped that have stabbed us in the backs. Stabbed us in the backs. I've always loved those photos on social media where you see like the dad or the mom sitting around the kid, and it's got like the bow and like the arrows stabbed in the back, and you see the blood coming out. That's what my family's backs feel like most of the time. Now, I'm not trying to say that for y'all to feel bad for us. I'm just letting you know we've been where you all are at. We've been through the war. We know what it's like to have people you love come behind you that you thought were helping you expand your capacity and help you get to the next level, just completely slice you in half. We know what it's like. We've walked through with people that we knew that they needed help, and we helped them, and now they're thriving. And we give God the glory. But how many of you know the enemy of wisdom is feelings? People's feelings will cloud their judgment every single day. I want to encourage y'all. This is like, guys, I don't understand it. Like, this is huge, okay? It's so simple, but it's so huge. Because I love, there's a sign next door, and it simply says, I want you to find something to die for and live for it. Find something you would die for and live for it. Because how many of you know, when you create new healthy habits, that's one step in the right direction to help other people, right? When you stretch in the little. And I love the quote. It simply says, if I remember correctly, it was like when you're consistent in the small things, when you get to the big things, you will appreciate it even more. You'll appreciate the big things. We've had a fun last couple years, haven't we? In the U.S. and around the world. But how many of you know, if it wasn't for what we went through in the last 2 years, we wouldn't be able to fight what we're going to come up against in the future? And the last couple of years I believe, has proven how many of you have had, when you go through a hard time, you've had friends, you know your true friends when you're going through a hard time because they're walking in when everybody else is walking out. Who your true friends are, who your true family is. And I say this all the time, but I believe this strongly, that blood does not make them family. I have so many people in my life that are not blood, but they're family, that have been there when I'm working on my habits. They come alongside of me and go, Blake, what is it? What are you doing, bro? Why don't we come back over here? Why don't we try this? They help me work on the little things. The little things that I don't even see that I do, that they go, hey, bro, that's not probably the right thing to be doing at the moment. It's almost like, they're coming along and holding your hand, but they don't even realize they're holding your hand and walking you through a storm. And they help you, excuse me, they help you expand your capacity. Because how many of you know your capacity will determine how far you go, or how far you're willing to go for what you want? So, this guy I'm about to bring up has showed me a lot about who I am. He's walked with me through some of the hardest times in my life and some of the funnest times in my life. Well, in my entire life was a fun time, but you know what I'm trying to say. But if it wasn't for this guy, I wouldn't be standing here, because I would be in the back corner hiding, afraid to be up here talking in front of a camera and in front of you all. But without further ado, would you please help me welcome my amazing father, Mr. Tim Goad.
Thanks, Tiger. You know I'm going to use this. Blake Goad, will you give him a hand? I love him so much. That's my son, and I love him. I'm so glad you're here today. I'm going to talk to you for a little bit here about a subject today that I just call finishing strong. It's the first lesson of 2022. And I hope you have a smartphone or a piece of paper or something that you can take down some information. I'm not trying to be weird, but in order to spend 1 hour with me, if you go on and I give a talk, is $12,500 for 1 hour. And you say, Tim, why? And I'm not being arrogant. It's because I'm good. I really seriously am. I get things done. I get companies moving. But I also am very irritating. As a leader, one of the things you will do in your life is you have to be really good at resolving conflict. Are you with me? Stay with me now. But I also have to be really good at creating it. So what I would do is come into your life. What's your first name? Do you mind? Shayna? Yes. What a beautiful name. I'm going to come into Shayna's life, and for a moment, I would really create conflict between you and I, because I would challenge all the lies you believe about yourself. I would really challenge. And so Any time in life when you're in a comfortable place, and by the way, I have people in my life that do this for me. I have 12 men in my life that I don't make a major decision without their input. I think people that do not have accountability in their life will live a life that's very fruitless. It won't be fruitful. I don't think you can examine. The greatest golfers in the world have coaches. The greatest business leaders in the world have coaches. The greatest pastors in the world have coaches. The greatest people that build relationships have coaches in their lives. You just have got to have that. I am amazed that watching my daughter with all this talent of writing songs and her ability to sing and do what she does, she still is so hungry to learn and continually seeks out new coaches. Coach me. I don't know where in our society we ever thought we were ever going to be all that we were created to be without the eyes of someone else looking at who we are and what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. And if you're used to leading here, here's the visuals. Are you ready? And somebody walks in the room that leads here, that person that leads here is going to irritate you, because they're going to challenge every belief system you have. Because you have already established here how you feel like leadership should look. But real leadership that is effective, that is lasting. And for me in my life, it's eternal. Right? Most people are trying to lead a company or an organization just into making their numbers look good for a fiscal year. And then I've got to ask you, if you're a success, how do you know you're a success? So I have this Chinese proverb that I love that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But then I add, and that teacher at first is going to be very irritating. Going to be very irritating, because they will question everything that's going on in your life. They'll question your motives. They'll question your why. They will question the end game. They will look at your life and ask, how are you doing physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? And they will ask these questions in your life. And most people don't want to live there. So if you're leading people, get ready. You're probably trying to take people where they don't want to go. But leaders are not really great leaders because they take people just where they want to go. They actually take people where they don't want to go and don't know to go. Okay, are you with me? That's a lot of information right there. So your personal growth and your personal growth plan in your life is going to determine how far and how high you can go. Now, I would love to just punch pause for a second. And if you've ever known somebody that's been given an opportunity that they were not prepared for, they will always do more damage than they will do any healing. They just will. Most of you that are listening to me right now, you have been led by somebody that didn't know your value. They didn't know your heart. They didn't know your shape. They didn't know your calling. They didn't know any of these things. And then they try to mentor and shape your life. It won't work. So the first thing we've got to do in somebody's life is we've got to determine what is it that they want to be and how much growing is it going to take for them to get there. And so let me just give you a kind of a scale, a measurement that you could get along, okay? My daughter is 22 years old. If she met another man that was 22 years that had the idea that maybe in 10 years she would like to date him, okay, or he would like to date her, because we know tomorrow she's not going to date anybody. But anyhow, I'm just kidding, baby. Here's what I can tell you, though, okay? In order, if he was never raised in the environment that she was raised in, okay? Faith, finances, leadership, attitude. It takes 8 years if she stops growing right here to where she is at 22. It takes 8 years to get him equal with her. And that's if she stops growing. Now, those of us that love the Word of God, there's this little scripture that says, don't be unequally yoked. Now, that's not only in relationships in marriage and life, it's in business. Because if you do, you will always fight each other, because I'm going to think thoughts here while you're going to think thoughts here. Are you okay? So if you have questions, please write them down and we'll talk about it. So here's what I got to beg you today. Number one, by the way, there are 5 of these. We're going to do them really quick because I know how busy you are. Number one, decide you will never stop growing. Decide you will never stop growing. Decide you will never stop growing, and put yourself into environments that irritate you and move you from your comfortability into your calling. Okay? The greatest single miracle in all the world is I can be tomorrow what I'm not today. And if I would ask you right now, what are the 5 areas in your life right now that you need to grow the most? And what is your plan? Because growing is this. Sometimes it means I'm growing out of something, and sometimes it means I'm growing into something, and most of the time it means both of those. Are you with me? So as you're leading people, whether it's family or children or whoever you are, and by the way, this growth thing is not a judgmental thing. It's not a criticism thing. It's not a comparing thing. It's just a fact. And I've got to know that. I've got to know that when I step into somebody's life. If I go into a company and I try to move them too fast to get them where they really need to be, I actually can damage them. If you try to move somebody when they're already of this opinion, if I try to move them too fast, I actually can hurt them more than help them. So I have to be very aware and astute how to get people from here to here, because here's what most people do. They get offended and they get hurt, and then they stop growing. So in your life right now, to make it to where you think success is, where winning is, are you with me? To get there, how much growing do you need to do personally to make that happen? Now, if I were coaching you today, I would literally sit down with you and I would ask you, in 1 year from now, where do you want to be? In 5 years from now, where do you want to be? In 10 years from now, where you want to be? The reason I'm calling this lesson Finishing Strong is because in business, if we're going to do anything great, we do this as a practice. We go to the end of what we want to do, and we begin with the end in mind. So we go to the end and we back into the plan. So right now, whatever your plan is, whatever your growth, whatever your dream, whatever your definition of success is right here, we're going to have to build a plan to get you there. You don't change overnight. I don't change overnight. And here's the problem. The greatest enemy to success, if you could only imagine this, is not failure. The greatest enemy to your and my success is success I've already had. And most people keep trying to repeat the same success that they've done for the last 5 years, 10 years ago, and they don't know why. So success and growth. So growth may mean, you know what? I just got to change what I see and how I see things in life. I've got to change my attitude. I have to change what I think about certain things, right? So some of it is I cannot be offended any longer. You can never really truly lead in life if you just continually be offended over and over and over, because it will fill you with fear so that you can't take the action to get to where you need to go. That's why around here we say, welcome home, where you can belong before you know how to behave. What are we basically saying? We're saying in this environment, you're not going to be judged, measured, or graded. You're going to be encouraged and uplifted. So in your life right now, I have to ask myself, do I know my potential? Do I know my potential? Now, God has just gifted me in a lot of ways with the ability, me as a leader, some of you he's given the same gift, that I can walk into somebody's presence and within about 5 minutes, I can see the potential that's inside of a person. And I also, in a few minutes more, can see what is keeping that potential from becoming a reality. Are you with me? So right now, you first got to be able to see your potential. Are you with me? And second of all, I've got to see what's keeping me from reaching that potential. Third, then I've got to find out what is it that I need in my life in order to reach the potential. You know, I think it's so great, sir, that you're here today, and I'm assuming this is your son. Is that right? Is this your son? Yes. Oh, beautiful. So can I tell you, this is so gorgeous. Because most people think you have to be in your late 20s before you can learn these concepts. And truthfully, you would be amazed what a 3-year-old can learn. You could be amazed. You would really be amazed at what a 1-year-old can learn. By the way, child psychologists will tell you that children, normally by the time they're age 2 years old, have already developed their value system. Their value system. So we all have this potential, and if we're going to reach it, I think you all would agree with me right now, I've got to grow. And I think the day that you decide that you're no longer going to grow is the day that your spirit and your life begins to shrink. Because everything you want in life is on the other side of the pain of growing, which my son talked about early, about stretching. So, here's what I know. Sometimes in life, we stay so focused as leaders on how everybody around me needs to grow. I can see the things in you that need to grow. The greatest leaders in all the world are focused more on how they need to grow themselves. Because when you grow, everyone around you has the chance to now grow to their potential. Let me say it another way. If you don't reach your potential, there's a really great chance that people around you won't reach theirs. And if they do, they will have to go find another leader that will draw it out and bring it out in them. So, I think all of us know this, but I think it bears repeating. I really have no control over anybody else's growth. I don't. There's only 2 things you can give people in life. Only 2. I can give them an opportunity, and I can give them an example. An example of growing. I do want to let you know that it is a myth that people say that's a growing church, or that's a growing company, or that's a growing... No, it's people are growing, and the organization benefits from the growth of all the people. That's why if you're ever going to win a championship ring, you cannot have 2 players that are growing and 8 that are just comfortable. So for you, you want to create an environment where people feel safe. We'll do a whole nother lesson on this. So they can step in and feel safe and encouraged and inspired to step out of their yesterdays and step into their futures. But you have to create a safe environment. So as you begin to grow, here's what I hope you will do. I hope that you will grow from just receiving information to really receiving wisdom. Wisdom. So, how many of you know growth can be painful? Because you got to stretch. And you got to be really careful. You got to be really careful in an environment that when one player or one person that is on a team is being mentored to the next level, you don't step in and take that process out of their life by thinking you should protect them. I'll give you a great example of this. When we were children growing up, my little sister was, we were down in the garden, and the garden was down. You had to go down this long hill, and then there was the garden. And we had been in the garden all day, and my little sister was at the bottom of the hill, and all of us run to the top of the hill, and she was down at the bottom of the hill. It was probably 40 feet down the hill, and I ran down and grabbed her and picked her up because I saw her struggling. And I ran down and picked her up and carried her to the top of the hill. And I sat down very pridefully and like, look who I am. I'm a great big brother. Look at me. That's good. And that was a good thing, right? But my daddy looked at me and said, take her back down. And I went, you are mean. I didn't argue with him. Stay with me now. Because if you ever deliver somebody when they're being adjusted, you're not helping them. So I had to take her back down and set her down. In all of my confusion, my honor of my father was greater than my desire to be right. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. And I walked back up, and my dad came over and he put his arm around me and he said, if you keep doing for her what she needs to do for herself, son, that's not love. And you're not helping her. She's got to build the strength. And I watched her crawl all the way up the hill. I think as a parent and as a leader, one of the most painful things you will ever do in your life is watch people get in the flow of growth. Because you watch them, they look like they're going to drown. It almost seems like there's no faith in it. Now, I'm not ever talking about being in any way, shape, or form cruel or mean or abuse. I'm just talking about real growth. In my life, I watched my daughter when she was about 2 years old walk out in front of the Portland Coliseum. It was about 25,000 people, and we had written this song, Everybody Wants to Be Somebody, Everybody Has Dreams Inside. And she walked out in her little dress and her blonde hair and little blue eyes popping, and she stood in front of this crowd, and the music began to play, and she sang, and the more she sang, her body began to shake, and now I'm in a tough place. She finished the song and the crowd clapped for 15 minutes. It was that beautiful. While my wife held her off the side of the stage as she wept, and my wife looked at me and asked me these words, are we doing the right thing? I said, yep, because she's about to find her spot in the world. And when she does, it's over. You will never get to the spot that you were called to be in your life without shaking, without feeling injustice, without feeling, should I really be doing this? I watched my wife as she told me when we dated, don't ever ask me to speak and don't ever ask me to sing. And now I watch her speak all over the world. But it was 10 years. It was 10 years that she said no. What dreams do you have in the people that are close to you? Because here's what I want you to know. Zig Ziglar changed my life. If you've ever read any of his books, see you at the top. Zig was a friend of mine. Zig and I spoke together every week of our lives, but he was always somewhat of a mentor to me. And I will never forget him looking at me one day and saying to me, Tim, if you'll help enough other people get what they want in life, you can have what you want in life. That changed my life forever. Because it got my eyes off of me and it got my eyes on you. It got my eyes on you. It got my eyes on you. And so one of the things that has to happen is when the student is ready, one of the things you'll find inside them when they get ready to grow, when they've determined to grow, you will find a spirit of humility that they will no longer challenge you, but they will say, will you teach me? Wow. Now, let me just say something to you about a mentor in your life for a moment. Can I do this? If it came between me having the mentors in my life and us being really close friends, I would give up the friendship in order to have the mentorship. Now, you may think that's weird. I think it's beautiful when you can have both of them, but you got to watch out for familiarity, because all of a sudden, if you're not careful, you will dishonor the voice that God put in front of you. And you will no longer hear it. You actually will get mad at it. And so in my life, I'm grateful. So it hasn't always been easy. I got one more story I'll tell you on this, and then we'll move on. One of my mentors in my life owned several companies. He owned banks, and he owned all this stuff. And he loved God, and they were amazing people. And I walked up to him one day, and I said to him, I said, you got, his name is Dexter. And I said, Dex, you've got me scared to make mistakes and to fail around you. And I thought he would say to me, oh man, it's okay, come here. But he looked at me and he said, good. I don't want you to ever get comfortable with failure. I want you to get comfortable with winning and stretching and growing. Wow. One person can give you information. One person can give you wisdom. Proverbs says, though it costs you everything you have, get it. Where you are right now and where you want to go in your life has wisdom attached all over it. And by the way, wisdom is not an age thing. You can be 80 and not have any wisdom. You can be 10 and have great wisdom. Wisdom is a choice to learn and to grow and to improve. So decide, I will never stop growing. Okay, I'll move faster on the rest of them, okay? The second one is do it now. Do it right now. Get started right now. Don't wait. Don't put it off. Someday is no day. What you're doing right now counts. What you're doing right now counts. Do it right now. Well, I know your question. Well, I'm ready to grow, but the person I'm with's not ready to grow. What do? Do it right now. But don't irritate, don't throw salt in their wound, just grow. Don't grow because you think you're better than everybody else. Grow because you're going someplace that you want to celebrate in your life. That's why you've got to have a plan. But I beg you, don't put it off. Don't put it off. In your life, procrastination is one of the greatest enemies to your life and to your future. One day is no day. I don't know what your dream is. I don't know the 10 steps to that dream, but I will tell you right now, we better figure it out this week. And we better get going on 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of them this week. We need to move right now. Procrastination is the assassination of motivation. You know when you are all motivated and you're ready to do something, like even today, some people were coming here and they let something steal their motivation, right? And you just have to be really careful in life that you don't allow the circumstances of your life to take the motivation out of your life. Here's what I can tell you. Don't ever get stuck over the past, and don't get stuck worrying about the future. We're going to figure it out. Do it now. Get started right now. Don't think in problems, think in solutions. My son was telling early in their life, our children would actually come to us, and we started deparenting at about 9 years old. And anyhow, they would come to me and say, Daddy, what are we going to do about this? I said, well, I need you to give me 3 solutions. So when you come back, I don't want you all need to tell me the problem. I want you to tell me 3 solutions. And so they would come back later and say, well, Dad, here's 3 solutions that I see. And I would say to them, well, which one of those can you live with? In every circumstance in your life right now, you have about 3 options. And you've got to decide which one of those you can personally live with. Most people, when they go to solve a problem, actually grow a problem. Most people, when they go to grow a problem, solve a problem, they grow a problem. If you don't know what your behavior and your role in any environment does, you will actually grow a problem, especially if you don't know what you do and if you don't know what other people do. This happens in communication all the time. Do you know what I'm talking about? You think you're saying one thing, but they're hearing something completely different, right? Does that happen to you? It happens to me all the time. Matter of fact, I think one of the greatest mistakes we make in our life is just because we think we talked, we think people understand. They really seriously don't. So I think we have to ask people, what do you think I just said? Or say to people, you just said this to me. I wrote it down, not in a demeaning thing, but is this really what you said to me? I want to make sure I understood what you said. Here's what I can tell you. Every person who has grown, every person who is still growing, are you with me? Every person that's ever grown, every person that's still growing started somewhere. Now let me just punch pause for a minute and say to you, right now, to you, do not despise the day of small beginnings. Because most people, unless it's big and they can be validated by it, they don't want to do it. That's why most people say, well, if you'll get me this, then I'll give you this. I'll give my all when the crowd gets bigger. I'll get bigger and better when you give me a better position. I'll do better when you give me a corner office. No, you really won't. Matter of fact, the real issue of our souls right now and doing it now is how faithful will you be when no one is watching, and how faithful will you be in the little. And probably the greatest leadership principle in all the world is this: if we're faithful in the little, then you can be elevated to more. Are you with me? Yeah. If I gave you this, what did you do with it? If I give you an opportunity, what did you do with it? So in your life, if you're going to do it now, let me give you 3 things that I beg you to do, and then we'll move to the next point. Number 1, get educated. Get educated. Whatever you're doing, get educated. And be careful, because what you know right now is keeping you from knowing what you need to know. You cannot keep operating the same way and get the results that you so truly want. The second thing is take action. After you get education, take action. Do it right now. Go. Be that person that has this real propensity inside of you, this drive inside of you, that you're driven to action. It's right now. Let's get busy. Let's get busy right now. Anybody besides me ever put something off? Anybody besides me had something I needed to do, and I said, well, I'm just going to sit down here for 1 second and watch the news just for a second. And 2 hours later, I get up off the couch and I go, well, it's too late now. Do you know what I'm talking? Education, action, and the third thing is get results and know what those results are. What results do you want in your life? What is the results you want 1 week from now? What is the results you want a month from now? What are the results? Do you know how important knowing what finishing means is? You need to know how to finish a minute. You need to know how to finish 10 minutes. You need to know how to finish in an hour. You need to know how to finish in a day. You need to know how to finish in a month. And you need to know how to finish for eternity. That's a lot of finishing, isn't it? That's how integral this thing is. If you don't begin with the end in mind, you won't finish. Number 3, are you ready? So we got 2, 3. Am I all right? Okay, thank you. I'm making them nervous. Is this helping anybody? It's helping me. I needed to hear this today. Matter of fact, I've been working on me more today than anybody else you know. I got to get better. I got to get better at being a husband. I got to get better at being a father. I got to get better at being a leader. And sometimes you can be so busy that you don't plan enough. And then you end up allowing everything to just go all directions because I didn't have a focus. Okay, the third thing is stay humble and be teachable. So the first one is decide, I will never stop growing. The second one is I'm going to do it now, review. Now the third is stay humble and be teachable. Wow. This is so hard. Can I tell you, it's so easy in life, especially according to your personality, to just want to be right. And I just want to beg you as a leader, stay humble and stay teachable. This week I had somebody text me something, and when I first read it, I just got to be very open with you. Have you ever had this happen to you? When I first read it, I went, you think I need your evaluation right now? You think I need your criticism right now? You think I need your critiquing right now? What I need from you right now is your help. You ever thought that way? And I went, Goad, you're not growing. You're not growing. Calm down and be teachable. What can I learn even when I'm hurt or offended? Wow. If I have an unteachable spirit and mindset, it will absolutely put a lid on my success. That's why we got to be so careful. Pride is such a terrible condition. It always comes right before a major failure or falling. Pride. In your life, in my life, I've got to ask myself these questions. Am I humble and am I teachable? Am I humble and am I teachable? Sometimes it's because of my experience that I'm so certain about that I don't grow. I don't grow. Do you know what it actually causes me to do? It causes me to lose one of the greatest skills in all the world, and that's the skill to listen. Listen and understand before you weigh in. So, when you stop growing, you're going to stop leading. And I think it all begins with the day in our lives where we get prideful and we become, we think we're teachers instead of students. I got to tell you, in my life, I want to remain a student. Sometimes I fly a lot. And so I'll sit down beside somebody and they'll look at me when my wife's not traveling with me and they'll go, "What do you do?" I say, "I'm a full-time student. I'm a full-time student." And they go, "You're still a student?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm a student." And I said, what I've found out is education is really expensive. But if you want to know what's really expensive is ignorance. Not knowing means I'm not going to grow. I stop growing and then I stop leading. So when you remain teachable, your potential is almost limitless. Let me say that to you one more time. When you remain teachable, our potential is almost limitless. One of the things at G5 in our leadership group, I promise you, you're going to find humility and you're going to find people being teachable. And we right now are going, you know what? We have not even yet begun to scratch the scratch of our potential. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to remain students. Now, it's easy to get up in front of a team and say, "I'm a student," and then act like you know it all. So just keep listening, especially, hear me, especially when people offend you. Keep listening. Because anytime somebody offends you, it closes you down and it makes you not be able to hear. Now, if you really want to go to the next level of growth, let's learn how to speak to each other that I never close somebody down. They keep their hearts and their arms and their minds open. So here's what I can tell you. One of the greatest obstacles to growth is not ignorance. It is knowledge. And it's knowledge that is full of pride and arrogance. The fourth thing is, as we move, because I got to finish this up, in your life, remember you're going to have self-growth, not self-fulfillment. You're going to have self-growth, not just self-fulfillment. Growing is not always comfortable. It's almost always painful. To grow is almost always painful. When I was a boy growing up, I got these things called growing pains, and they used to hurt so bad. I would get up in the middle of the night, and they would just be aching so bad. And back then, we didn't have all the fancy stuff we have now, and I'm not sure we even have fancy stuff now that works. But I used to go in and get rubbing alcohol and rub on my legs and let it dry, and then I would go, and it seemed like that would make the growing pain go away. Here's what I can tell you in your life. Be careful when you try to make the pain of growth go away too quickly. Be careful. Growth is about stretching and changing. It's about making tough decisions. It's about letting go of negative feelings. And it's about me doing what I want in the moment and having delayed gratification in my life. It's living life at a whole new, higher level. And I just want to encourage you, delayed gratification in your life, which means I can take what I want right now. And here's what I find out with people that honestly take what they want right now. It's always at the expense of what they really wanted. In any conversation, in any dispute, in any conflict, and anything like in your life, it's so easy in your life to give up what you really want for what you have right now. And you want to make sure you don't do that. I want to make sure I don't do that. The fifth thing is don't get satisfied. Don't get satisfied. If you're going to grow, don't get satisfied. Don't say to yourself, wow, I can now take time off. This is so illustrated in the Old Testament in David's life. David was a mighty warrior. David was a man after God's own heart. David was this man who had passion and fire and energy in his soul. He actually had enthusiasm in his soul. And one day, go read it, go read the story, even if you don't have faith, even if you don't believe in the Bible, go read the story. Because here's what it says. One day he got up and he said, I'm not going to battle today. Any day in your life that you decide to take gratification instead of the calling, any day of your life you choose to have comfort over calling, you're going to be in trouble because you're not going to make a good decision. Watch out for complacency in your life. Complacency is such a horrible word. Have you ever been in the presence of someone who is complacent? Have you ever walked into the room and never felt celebrated? Matter of fact, can I tell you, some of us need to grow in two areas of our lives. Can I just challenge us right now? Some of us need to get better at taking encouragement. Because when someone comes along, we have been so shrunk in our growth that when they encourage us, we actually think they're trying to manipulate us. So make sure your encouragement is always uplifting and honest and real and authentic. But some of us, honestly, on the other side of it, we've got to get better at giving it. Because we walk into a room and don't realize that encouragement is the number one thing people need in their lives. And if you get satisfied, if you get comfortable, you will always take the seat that causes you not to build and bless and help people get to a whole nother level. Keep your passion alive. David lost his passion, and he stayed home and got passionate about something he shouldn't have been passionate about. In your life as a leader right now, what is it that you're focused on and passionate about? But it's not the greater, it's the lesser. And you probably would even arm wrestle me for it. You probably would even say, no. I know what I want, and this is what I'm going to get, and I don't care what it costs me to get it. That's good only when what you want is something that's going to build you and grow you and develop you. It is not good. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. When it's something that will destroy you and crush people around you. Can I tell you, in closing, a plane on the ground is supposed to be safer. But a plane that stays on the ground will wear out so much faster than a plane that stays in the air. Why? Because a plane was built to fly. A ship, they say, is safer in the harbor, but they wear out way faster. They rust out so much faster in a harbor than they do when they're out at sea. Matter of fact, when a hurricane comes, the first thing they do is on big vessels, they take them out to sea. Why? Because they were made to float in the sea. They don't do very well in a harbor tied up to something. In your life, I beg you, do not get satisfied. Do not get complacent. Do not ever settle for in your life. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That student that's in you should be humble and aggressively hungry in your life, and the teacher should be somebody in your life that wants what's best for you. What's best for you, not what's best for them. What's best for them, not what's best for me as the teacher. The people that have changed my life the most in my life have been people that honestly came into my life and said to me, hey, I see your calling. I see your giftedness. I'm going to put you in this position. As a leader, if you want to keep growing and you really want to grow well, take these 5 little principles and make them start this year so that at the end of 2022, you finish strong and you finish accomplishing what you were meant to accomplish in 2022. In your life, though, find people that believe in you, that can honestly be open with you and help you navigate the changes and the growth that you need to have in your life. Here's the thing I will tell you that blows me away about Jesus. Whenever he dealt with someone, he dealt with what they had done wrong, but he always left their self-esteem intact. He always attacked the problem and not the person. I want you and your leadership to help people grow. If you would be really honest and transparent with me right now, one of the greatest frustrations in your life right now is the fact that you know you need to be growing and you're not growing at the pace you want. And the second frustration is people in your life that you want to grow, that you know they need to change. You can see the changes they need to make in their lives, and they're not willing to do it at the pace you think they should. Love is so powerful in this growth process because it puts people in an environment of safety and no judgment and no comparison and no criticism. And it brings them into an environment where they can stretch and grow and dream and make simple little changes. I want to encourage you as a leader, my last statement to you. The littlest amount of growth in somebody on your team's life or in your marriage, the littlest amount. I mean, like almost so little you don't even want to compliment on it. Make a huge deal out of it. Go, wow, you blow me away. That is so incredible. And I'm not talking about being fake or phony or manipulative. I'm talking about being somebody that is a noticer and an encourager and an uplifter and a builder of people. Don't study people to find out what's wrong with them. Study people to find out what they're about to do in their life to go to a whole nother level. Hey, this is going to be an amazing year. I'm honored that I get to walk with you. Blessings, charge. Go get it done. Finish strong.